Rational thinking is a methodical cognitive process that relies on logic, evidence, and factual analysis to draw conclusions or make decisions. Rooted in classical philosophy and modern science, it is deeply intertwined with principles of logic, objectivity, and systematic evaluation. Steven Pinker succinctly defines rational thinking as the use of knowledge to attain goals. This emphasizes that both verifiable knowledge, or truth, and purposeful application are essential for rationality. In cognitive science, two forms are widely recognized. Epistemic rationality is the process of aligning beliefs with truth and reality, forming conclusions that accurately represent how the world is. Instrumental rationality involves making decisions that efficiently achieve one's goals, maximizing expected value based on available information and sound probabilities. Key characteristics of rational thinking include being logic-based, evidence-driven, systematic, and objective. It involves openness to revision, a problem and goal-oriented approach, and an analytic and critical disposition. Ultimately, it is outcomes-focused, seeking optimal solutions considering context and consequences. Radical thinking originates from the Latin radix, meaning root. It describes cognitive approaches that fundamentally question or challenge accepted norms, structures, and paradigms. It seeks to address problems or envision alternatives at their root cause rather than merely treating symptoms or making superficial improvements. Key aspects include root cause analysis, tracing ideas or problems to their foundational assumptions or origins. It involves conceptual or ideological departure, suggesting ideas or solutions that greatly diverge from accepted practice or belief. It also encompasses a visionary and creative leap, imagining new paradigms, social orders, technologies, or philosophies with disruptive potential. Radical thinking often overlaps with first principles reasoning, which boils complex problems down to their most basic, unquestionable truths. Solutions are then reconstructed afresh. Key characteristics of radical thinking include foundational challenge, questioning existing systems or beliefs. It is holistic and systemic, seeing problems as symptoms of deeper issues. It is innovative and visionary, imagining new frameworks, and disruptive and transformative, with the potential to alter institutions. It carries high risk and uncertainty, is courageous and nonconformist, and is often interdisciplinary. In essence, radical thinkers are not satisfied with tweaks. They seek paradigm shifts, often acting as catalysts for social reforms, scientific revolutions, or massive technological disruption. Evidence-based judgments base beliefs, predictions, and decisions on observable, measurable evidence rather than authority, tradition, or intuition alone. Emotional regulation strives to separate reasoning from emotional impulses, recognizing cognitive biases and delaying responses for thorough evaluation. Systematic and stepwise methods break down complex problems into manageable parts, following structured processes. Future orientation and planning consider long-term impacts and consequences. A dialogic attitude values discussion and debate to refine ideas, avoiding rigid dogmatism. This disposition is apparent in fields ranging from science, where hypotheses must be falsifiable, to business, where cost-benefit analyses demand impartial scrutiny. It is also crucial in ethics, where systemic reasoning weighs competing values. Systemic and holistic analysis views problems as interconnected, arising from the structure of systems, advocating for comprehensive reforms. Disruptive ambition accepts or even seeks the destabilization of established systems to enable fundamental, beneficial change. Openness to paradox and ambiguity recognizes and sometimes embraces the inherent uncertainties and contradictions in complex systems. Interdisciplinary and integrative approaches draw insights from multiple domains, connecting diverse fields to address root-level issues. Radical thinking is often observed in those advocating for revolutionary political, social, scientific, or technological change. It is common among transformative leaders, inventors, and social critics. In medical practices, evidence-based medicine relies on empirical research and statistical analysis to determine effective treatments. Vaccination strategies are informed by rational, statistical risk evaluation for public health policies. In technology and engineering, the design of airplanes depends on simulations, mathematical modeling, and rigorous safety analysis. Ethical analysis, such as utilitarian reasoning, weighs the aggregate benefit or harm to choose the most just policy. Technological innovation saw the Internet conceived as a globally interconnected network, ushering in the digital age. SpaceX's reusable rockets defied industry norms, lowering space travel costs. 3D printing challenged traditional mass production, unlocking design freedoms. Social and political transformations include abolitionism, which fundamentally redefined moral and legal standards. Universal suffrage, once radical, is now a human rights standard. Early environmentalism called for comprehensive regulation to protect nature. Business disruption includes Amazon's e-commerce model, which destabilized global retail. Ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft disrupted established taxi frameworks. In arts and culture, movements like Cubism and Surrealism challenged aesthetic conventions. Punk music rejected mainstream values, fostering a new ethos. These radical ideas often begin as marginal or irrational in their respective contexts but can prove world-changing after adoption and legitimation. Recent philosophical inquiry emphasizes the importance of safety when considering the truth or prudence of a belief or course of action. Decisions are safe if they remain true or effective even as new, unforeseen data or situations arise. Rational, evidence-based approaches are typically safest because they are robust to such changes. In summary, rational thinking offers greater safety, reliability, and incremental progress. Radical thinking is essential for addressing wicked problems and unlocking revolutionary change, but at the price of greater uncertainty and risk. Irrationality is not a fixed state. Ideas often move from irrational to rational as evidence, technology, or social context evolves. The process begins with initial dismissal, as radical ideas often start as irrational or heretical under prevailing paradigms. Think of Galileo's heliocentrism or the notion that hand-washing could reduce infection. Empirical evidence then accrues, as proponents gather and present evidence, refine arguments, and develop new methods to test their ideas rationally. This leads to challenge and debate, where the weight of evidence and successful predictions cause others to reconsider. Dominant paradigms are challenged in academic, professional, or public forums. Validation and institutionalization follow, where overwhelmingly compelling ideas shift from fringe to mainstream. They are codified in new theories, policies, or products. Finally, normalization occurs, and what was once irrational becomes a new standard of rationality. Historical examples include the germ theory of disease, initially ridiculed but later revolutionary. Democracy, once considered irrational, is now widely valued. Personal computing and the Internet, once niche, are now pillars of modern life. In sum, irrational ideas can be transformed into rational ones via accumulation of evidence, successful empirical validation, and evolution of conceptual frameworks. Selective quotation, or contextomy, involves extracting statements from their full context, altering original meanings, often for rhetorical advantage. This can create straw-man arguments or misleading appeals to authority. A shift in cultural, social, or scientific paradigms means previous theories are interpreted through new lenses, such as presentism in historical analysis. Loss of nuance occurs when complex theories are reduced to simplistic sound bites, omitting conditions or scope. Instrumentalization happens when past ideas are repurposed to support current agendas, regardless of their original intent. Examples include Darwin's theory of evolution, distorted for purposes like social Darwinism, often ignoring nuance. Religious texts are mined and removed from context to justify positions not intended by original authors. Legal precedents are sometimes cited out of context, misrepresenting their application. Scientific advances are sometimes used to endorse pseudoscience, ignoring careful reasoning. Consequences include the spread of misinformation, social polarization, and erosion of trust in expertise. It also undermines genuine scholarship and critical inquiry. Countermeasures involve media and academic literacy focusing on reading upstream, tracing claims to their source. Peer review and scholarly debate foreground historical and epistemic context. Teaching context as a core element of critical thinking is also vital. Who determines truth in science, and how? Scientific truth is provisionally established through a rigorous, community-based process. Claims must be testable, measurable, and reproducible, with experiments and observations forming the bedrock. Peer review and skepticism ensure methodological soundness and critical debate. Falsifiability requires theories to make risky predictions that could, in principle, be proven false, as per Karl Popper's critical rationalism. The shift from Newtonian physics to Einstein's relativity, or from Lamarckian inheritance to neo-Darwinian genetics, illustrates science's openness to new paradigms upon sufficient evidence. Scientific truth is fundamentally about the best available explanation consistent with current evidence, not about certitude or finality. Who determines truth in religion, and how does it differ from science? Religious truth is derived through fundamentally different epistemological means. Truth is often anchored in divine revelation, scripture, or the teachings of authoritative leaders. Contrasts with science are clear. Science's source of truth is empirical and logical, while religion's is revelation and faith. Verification in science is testing and peer review, in religion it is authority and scripture. Science is provisional, religion often absolute. Science has community debate, religion has councils. Science seeks universal explanations, religion is often tradition-specific. The truth of the resurrection in Christianity is not established by empirical evidence but by scriptural authority and personal witness. In contrast, the age of Earth is determined in science by radiometric dating. Different religions claim different, sometimes mutually exclusive, ultimate truths, relying on different authorities or principles. The domain of applicability for science is the natural world and how questions, while for religion it is morality, meaning, and why questions. Stephen Jay Gould popularized the non-overlapping magisteria, or NOMA, view. This suggests science and religion each own separate domains, science for empirical reality, religion for moral meaning. This model aims to minimize epistemic conflict. The Galileo affair illustrates rational thinking versus radical reform. Galileo Galilei's championing of heliocentrism, a radical departure, rested on evidence-based reasoning. His work shows the power of rational thinking, the transformative potential of radical thinking, and the risks involved. It also demonstrates the eventual vindication of radical ideas through empirical validation. IBM's organizational culture exemplifies radical thinking for innovation. Its century-long success is attributed to encouraging employees to disrupt the status quo and propose paradigm-shifting ideas. Radical thinking within a supportive, rational framework has propelled IBM's industry leadership. The evolution of germ theory shows how irrational ideas become rational. Ignaz Semmelweis's advocacy for hand-washing was initially dismissed as irrational. Over years, through empirical validation and scientific debate, this concept transcended its radical roots to become a cornerstone of modern medical practice. This showcases the transition from marginal to mainstream rationality. Rational thinking and radical thinking are not mutually exclusive, they function as twin engines of human progress. Rational thinking provides society with clarity, consistency, stability, and incremental progress. Radical thinking supplies the vision, courage, and innovative energy needed to explore new conceptual continents. Rational thinking emphasizes logic, evidence, and incremental change for reliable and safe decision-making. Radical thinking questions foundational premises and, while riskier, enables paradigm shifts and revolutionary advances. Ideas once deemed irrational can become rational through empirical validation and shifting cultural contexts. Science and religion determine truth by fundamentally different methods, science by empirical evidence and debate, religion by authority, tradition, and faith. Misinterpretation of past theories often results from selective quotation, paradigm changes, simplification, or instrumentalization. To navigate an increasingly complex world, we must cultivate the discipline of rational analysis and the boldness of radical vision. We must honor both as indispensable to human flourishing.